October 25th, 2020. I was thinking about morality and politics. First, we have to define what we mean by morality. What is moral? Well, you might say the good, and something that is immoral is bad. It would be human well-being. I mean, if we limit ourselves to human beings, obviously it goes across to other animals, but if we just limit ourselves to politics and human beings, it's a slope. Some things are worse than other things, right? The Holocaust was an extreme example. 6 million people died, right? Were killed. So it's an extreme example of immorality, right? So everything has a certain level ranking, right? Telling a lie is perhaps immoral, depending on the situation. Stealing is less immoral than killing, right? So everything is on a continuum. So speaking to many Democrats, just kind of friends and people online, and I found that they were horrified by children in cages, as they should be, at the border, and family separation at the border, children in cages. Yeah, okay. And they should be. We all should be. We all should be furious that our government is doing this, right? Obama did it, and Trump is continuing on. So that's a valid point, right? So, and then another moral issue is Black Lives Matter. Of course, we see Black lives getting choked out. And it's horrific, and we should care because these are people's lives, right? And but somehow there's a intellectual inconsistency. There's a moral inconsistency when I talk to these people, because they'll be adamant about a particular thing, like, say, caging children, but when you talk about healthcare, they're not angry. I mean, they're raging about the children in the cages, but when you tell them about when you confront them with the fact that Biden opposes Medicare for all, they're not angry about it. That's amazing to me. That why, and that's something that is on a different level of morality. That's a higher evil when 70,000 people a year are dying. And it's worse than that because you've got millions of people who are suffering. Suffering is separate, like psychological suffering because they don't have access to healthcare. But the actual lives. So once again, what is moral? Well-being, human well-being, right? So, and it is horrible that those children are being put in cages, but that's less immoral than the Holocaust, right? I think we would all agree, right? Because they're not killing them. So in that same way, I'm just surprised that there's a logical inconsistency when you ask these people and you say, well, Biden opposes, not only does he ignore his own constituency, he opposes this, and this is going to cost many more than 70,000 lives per year, given now in the pandemic. So I just think there's an intellectual gap here. There's a intellectual, I'm not sure if it's a dishonesty or I hope not. It's just incoherent how they could be pushing for one thing adamantly, or Black Lives Matter being choked out. But if they really cared about Black Lives Matter, I mean, this is not rocket science. you should be supporting Medicare for all simply because 35,000 black people die due to lack of health care per year. So that compared to the people who get choked out by cops, and that's horrible as well, but you can't even compare. There's no comparison on the level. Just do the math. How many black lives are choked out by cops? And it's horrible, but it's nowhere near, it's not even close. We're talking about 40,000 black lives that are killed due to this for-profit healthcare system. So to me, I don't understand why, why these Democrats, does it just go over their head? Do they not understand? Can they not follow the logic? So I think, so when I speak with some of these people, I ask, why are you voting for Biden? They say, well, I don't like children in cages and stuff like that. And I agree, that's a great reason. But do you know that Biden opposes universal health care? Did you know that he's actually opposing 90% of his base who reasonably want Medicare for all, right? Because we're talking, it's going to be 100,000 per year or more even. So human lives. So I think if you happen to be one of those people and maybe you haven't thought it through, think about what morality is and do the math, basically. Count the number of lives killed. That's the easy way to do it. So I think we have to define what we mean by what is moral and immoral, and it's on a gradient. Yeah, right. There are different levels of what's good and bad. So I think yeah, I was just thinking about that, and I think it's important to point that out. If you happen to be having a discussion with somebody who has this incoherent, inconsistent opinion on what's moral and immoral, like voting for Joe Biden or Trump or whatever, it doesn't have to be Biden, but what I found is there's this kind of blind spot to the greater evil, which is so obvious. And that's interesting. I'm not sure why that is. I'm just kind of inquiring into it myself. And I think if you happen to be trying to speak with these people, it's important to point that discrepancy out, to say, you're being inconsistent. You do support defunding the police or whatever, or, when black lives are being choked out by cops, and they're in the streets too. The Democrats are out there, and the affluent Democrats are adamant about it, and they're adamant about, the children in cages, and they should be, but they're not adamant, and they're not furious that we're losing 70,000 lives per year due to this corrupt for-profit healthcare system. See, that is what I don't understand. It's like, we should be upset about all of those things. And then we should, what you do is you go to the deeper wound. You go to what is most immoral is a bigger issue, right? There are many different levels, but what is most immoral, everyone should agree, and we should not support that. So I think it's important to you have to reason with the person, because this is just basic logic. This is just basic addition. This should be immediately understood by anybody, right? And so, yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Thanks.